Mustached Tom here to review the movie Return to Silent Hill. Now, as per usual, this is a movie review. I haven't done one of these in a bit, but I digress in saying that I'll be going over all the details. And I did see the trailer for this movie, and I was slightly interested, to be honest, and I'll tell you why. Going back to the original Silent Hill movie, I look back at that movie and I think to myself, that is an underrated gem of a movie in terms of adaptation. There are bits of that movie that obviously are splitting between what happens in it and the movie, or the video game that it's based off of, obviously. But I think about all the video game movies that have come to exist over the time, and the one I will directly have compared this to, and we'll do it again here, just to make my point crystal clear, is Sonic the Hedgehog, and why. Sonic the Hedgehog is a good trilogy so far, and there's probably going to be a fourth movie somewhere down the line, maybe. In terms of its adaptation, God, is Sonic the Hedgehog a terrible adaptation in terms of just Sonic should never be going to Earth unless it's Sonic X, which was a Japanese anime that was brought over to the Americas some point later. But point being is that adaptation is an interesting argument. Because in terms of just pure one-to-one adaptation, the closest adaptation from video game to movie today is Bayonetta. That's number one on my list. If you've seen that movie and then the video game and compared it to the video game, that is like one-to-one from the game to movie. Number two for me, while a jump, yes, I would argue that, is the original Silent Hill. That's number two. Not Mortal Kombat, not Street Fighter, not any of these. Obviously not Sonic the Hedgehog. That'd be at the lowest in terms of, again, adaptation. Silent Hill, again, would be number two. I argue that Silent Hill, in its writing, again, from the movie, hits a lot closer to what happens in the game more than most that I've seen in video game movies. And to me, Return to Silent Hill, this movie, is honestly quite the same in that regard. Now, Return to Silent Hill, if you're not aware, is adapted from Silent Hill 2. Now, this is important. Silent Hill 2, for a lot of video game people, is way more of a story than, I think, even the original Silent Hill 1. And I think that does play a huge aspect of what people will be saying in their reviews, in terms of, you are adapting a masterpiece for a lot of people here. Silent Hill 2, that being. And here's the thing that I will say on that. I think that is a really hard ask. And for what I got from watching Return to Silent Hill, I was surprisingly, surprised with how many things. I was like, oh, this is just following Silent Hill 2 to a T currently. I was like, oh, wow, they're doing that bit. And it happened for quite a while throughout the movie, and I was consistently impressed, at least on that front alone. But there is a lot to be said in terms of still being able to criticize this movie, because I do think that there are some issues with it, but I do think from some of the reviews I have seen, I do think that certain people are because here's the problem, right? You talk about Disney adaptations. I know this is a sidetrack from video game adaptations. It's okay, we've had this argumentation for a long time. You know, first there's adapting it to a film in the first place, which just causes a criticism in it of itself. Now, I don't think that criticism is warranted. You know, there are just some people that will never play video games, so I think adapting things to movies does make logical sense in that front. So with that being said, it does come back to the adaptation argument, is how much you are actually pulling from the game, rather than, you know, it being adapted at all. You know, because you look at the Disney movies that have been adapted from their, you know, anime or drawn parts to a live action adaptation, and, you know, the differences there, and how close, and if it's 1-to-1, does that make it even worth it? You know, there again. But that's movie to movie, though. That's to me is a different argument. This is video game to movie. There is a completely different audience here. Video games have a different visceral reaction versus a movie. You're just watching a movie. You're playing a video game. So there is inherently there is an immediate pull away versus movie to movie adaptation, even if it's drawn to live action, versus video game to live action movie. So there is a lot to unpack here in terms of Return to Silent Hill. Now, again, I'm going to say what I just said earlier in this. I think in terms of pure adaptation alone, I think this is number 3 on my list in terms of, like, pure adaptation, because I'm recalling from what I can recall of Silent Hill 2, and it does hit most of the beats, most of the locations, most of the general story. So I do think that this is being completely, unfortunately, this has gotten way overpanned, and I think this is an underrated gem already. Already it is, to me anyway. But I'll go into more specific details. And again, I'm still going to be criticizing it because there are still things to criticize about this movie, but we'll get there. So we start from James driving up to... he's driving in some location, and along his travels, almost hits, due to his reckless driving, almost hits a other vehicle, but swerves out of the way. After stopping and seeing another vehicle pop up, introduce a young woman named Mary. So, she's trying to leave this location. She's attempting to pack her bags. However, the bags there are unable to be closed. So she just sort of waves off the bus, and James and Mary begin to commune with one another. And again, this location that they are in, 1-to-1 with the video game. I was like, oh my god, this looks like identical to the video game, but in live action form. That is, to me, very impressive, all things considered already. But we get a quick glimpse at a shot of her with these white eyes. It's implied really early that Mary is dead. And what we are seeing are these flashbacks in retrospect. So, We cut to some previous point where James ended up in this bar. And he was going out drinking, trying to just drink away his problems, getting into trouble. And he gets this call from his psychiatrist. Now, the psychiatrist element is new to the movie versus the video game, that I am aware of. And I don't necessarily think that's even a bad thing to, again, change things from video game to movie. In fact, I actually think in a way, because you have to condense for a 2-hour movie, I think this is a good use of condensing, honestly. I don't think that the criticism of her usage here is warranted necessarily. And it to me, it places James in a much more interesting bubble, at least just purely looking at this movie. You know, we're looking at somebody who's clearly struggling pretty early on in this movie, and isn't meant to be someone that is, you know, a reliable narrator in that sort of sense. But he gets a little bit of a headache, but spots a mysterious letter that says for him to return to the location of where they used to be. This is what drives him to go back to Silent Hill. This message is in the video game. If I recall, the message might have been longer in the game. I don't remember that because it's been a while. I don't recall the exact message in the game, if it was as short as this. But point is still essentially go to Silent Hill, is the pretty clear message here. And the message throughout, or at least pretty early on, gets smudged when we see it the second time, when he's in the bathroom and looking at it again. But he heads down the stairs, heading toward Silent Hill, and boom, we get the title crawl. Thus we are introduced to a woman named Angela, who's from the video game. Now, Angela has her own stuff going on in the game, but for the point of this movie, they do bring her back 2 times in this movie. And I do think that these elements are really... There's a lot going on, and again, I think that because it's quick, there is this criticism of like, oh, it's going, the pacing, right? The pacing is going to be one of the major criticisms. Not for me. I don't think that's again a fair criticism here. And I said this about Hazbin Hotel when I was reviewing that just because something is necessarily quick doesn't necessarily even mean it's bad. And I think that's the case here. I think everything that needs to be here is here. Again, condensed. And I gotta say, I sorely appreciate that in a sort of way. So he's like trying to ask about her to Angela, and he ends up like in the center of Silent Hill. Seeing it pretty much be abandoned, he calls out and begins to hear some very classical music, and heads towards this radio. As per usual in Silent Hill, when you see a radio and it starts to, flicker into that stuff, that means monsters are coming. This is 1-to-1 from the video game. And so it does so. And we do get our glimpse of a creature that is a creature directly from Silent Hill. So again, just pulling from the material that is present in the game. So as he updates his call to the psychiatrist, she's starting to get more and more concerned about the things that James is saying over the phone, but the phone is quickly dying. He did not have a lot of battery life left. He heads into Heaven's nightclub. Now, this location is really important in Silent Hill. He sees that location, but he spots the homeless guy, and this is where we first see the monster. The monster has this horrific ability to just burn the homeless guy, and James returns to attempt to deal with the creature. Grabs a weapon, and once the creature sort of heads off, the sirens of Silent Hill go off. And once you hear that noise, oh boy, you're in for it, as the entire world transforms as it to do in, well, Silent Hill once again. The area becomes substantially darker, more creatures appear, and James is completely just out of it, seeing all of this, and is trying to flee the scenario. So he tries to run off as they jolt him and try to attack him into this building. And we get a quick woman jump scare. I was told that there were 0 jump scares. That is not even true. We get a woman jump scare. But we are flashbacking to the hotel where James and Mary used to meet. Once heading up to the TV upstairs, he gets another headache and gets more of these flashbacks that sort of trickle throughout the movie, as it were. And I know this is a crazy statement, but I actually appreciate this more than the original Silent Hill. Now let me explain what I mean. In the original Silent Hill, they save like what's really going on for just the end of the movie. It's a ton of exposition in the end of the movie. And it goes on for a little while. I think it's like 5 minutes or something along these lines. And I think that lends itself to being like, well, that was like a whole lot of stuff going on there. A whole lot of relayatons. Here, being trickled information for me is substantially a better way of doing exposition, and if you're choosing one or the other, honestly. So I do appreciate that aspect of this movie more even than the original Silent Hill movie. So, with that, as I mentioned, his battery of the phone is beginning to die. But, she calls up to him in the flashback. And, we begin to see, this is all new for the movie, she is associated with these other group of people who are associated with this cult, as we will learn later on. And I think I will say, I heard this being criticized, and I'm going to have to push back on that as well. I think this is an interesting add-on, because Mary in the video game, she is a simple character, and to me, that just isn't compelling enough. And here's the thing, right? what she goes through is a lot. I mean, cancer, that is a lot to go through, don't get me wrong. I just think that adding on this additional element brings in this whole bit of her character that almost felt like it was missing. Like, here's the thing about Marion there, from what I can remember from the video game. To me, what that game comes across to me, from what I can remember of it, is a woman going through cancer. To me, that is like the bone of a character, like the start of a character, right? That's what that represents to me in terms of like when you're writing material. Like, okay, this is like your baseline. And when you add in this cult, to me, that adds in a whole new way of looking at Mary, which I would argue is actually way more interesting. Because to me, it pulls in this double dichotomy direction of either you're going to be slightly more sympathetic at James at this point, and then you learn what he does, and you're like, oh, no. Or you're going to be more sympathetic to Mary, which is also a good thing. So I am struggling to think of why this movie is getting panned. I'm gonna argue, like I said, I think this movie is hitting on the original Silent Hill level, honestly. Like, yeah, a lot of people are talking about, like, the CGI and, like, how it may look bad or what. I don't care. I care about writing. If you know my channel, you know that is my focus. My focus is on writing. And the writing and what is being presented here is much more in depth than I think a lot of people are pulling out, again, from the critiques that I am seeing. I'm seeing people being disappointed, the thumbnails that are like, and I'm just like, why? This movie is so insanely impressive most of the time. There's like one flaw that I find with the movie, and we're getting actually kind of close to it, but other than that, I'm just like, damn, this movie is hitting on cylinders that are really compelling, and it's really frustrating to see, like, other people just be like, but it doesn't look good enough, or something, or it's not scary enough. Like, okay, you obviously don't understand the point of Silent Hill if you're saying that, I think, honestly. Silent Hill is psychological horror. It's not meant to be like, ooh, it's terrifying. It's like, no. You're supposed to in-depth think about Silent Hill, and it's supposed to, like, fuck with your mind at a later point of, like, retrospect. That's the type of horror Silent Hill was originally. And to me, that's even what akins to, again, the movies. Silent Hill, the original one, wasn't necessarily even a horror movie to me, but again, I felt very compelled by that story. And seeing the elements unfold there versus here. But I digress, because I'm gonna get back to the movie here, this movie. So he sees this hospital paper noting that she had some type of condition. We learn around this juncture that James was a painter. I don't recall if that's in the game or not. I think it is. Anyway. He eventually finds Eddie. Now, this is my criticism, because I know other people, because I'm aware of Eddie as well from the video game as well. Eddie is definitely in the video game a whole lot more, or a little bit more than he is here. Eddie is like this one-off character that he bumps into, and it looks like they're almost going to team up until Eddie hears Pyramid Head encroaching, and then he fucks off for the rest of the movie. And that's it. That's it for Eddie. It's like, oh, okay, well, that's that, I guess. It's like, oh, I think that was a missed opportunity, quite frankly. So yes, we have Pyramid Head. Now, Pyramid Head's appearance in both the original Silent Hill 1 and Silent Hill, whatever the second movie was called, like, it was Silent Hill... I don't remember what it's called. Like, that's how forgettable that movie was, the second one. But this is Return to Silent Hill. Pyramid Head is only supposed to be in this movie. He was never intended to be in Silent Hill 1. Like, I don't know if people know that. Because here's what happened, and I know what happened. People played Silent Hill 2. And it was a fucking masterclass of a video game. And people love Pyramid Head so fucking much. He became a horror icon immediately. So the writers and the directors of even the original Silent Hill are like, we gotta put the Pyramid Head. People love Pyramid Head. Come on, guys. So they gave him a role in the original Silent Hill movie, even though he has nothing to do with the original Silent Hill. And it's like, yeah, that add-on was like a little bit like here's a little extra treat, and I acknowledge that. But here, no, he's actually meant to be in this movie because, again, this is based off of Silent Hill 2, where the only time that where at least Pyramid Head originates from. So I do appreciate that Pyramid Head is actually properly integrated into the movie. But as James is scrambling, he comes across this body, and next to the body is a head, and the head rolls towards him, and the body begins to shift into the spider, and the spider regroups with the head and sort of also chases him. This pours James into witnessing Pyramid Head interacting with the spider creature, and we see Pyramid Head beating down on the spider creature, and this scene might be the most important scene in this entire movie because it's all representation. All of it is, and I think a lot of people are going to miss out on that, right? Because you see it later on, by the way. I don't know, I'll just say it now. Spoilers, I guess. Pyramid Head is James. We see that. That becomes crystal fucking clear later on. In multiple iterations, by the way. Like, for example, James, we see him painting. We begin to see him painting the triangle and the bars in his little loft, as it were. And then we see Pyramid Head's eye, and it matches James's eye. So the representation is that Pyramid Head is him, and the Spider Lady is, well, Mary, then, by that extension. So what does that imply? The beatdown? Jeez, James, what the fuck did you do, right? A lot of people, I'm gonna guarantee, are not gonna get that. They're just gonna see two monsters fighting, and they're gonna go either, oh, that looked, bad because of the CGI, and they're not gonna be thinking, like, oh, right, Pyramid Head is James, or a representation of James, and the other spider creature is a representation of Mary. Oh, fuck. That is storytelling. That is fucking impressive. And people need to start putting respect on this guy's name, because this motherfucker, the director of this, who originally did the first Silent Hill movie, has done it a fucking again. This guy's fucking a genius. How are we criticizing this guy? How? This guy is fucking Hideo Kojima at, like, fucking with your mind when you start to actually think a little bit harder about what's going on here, about what things are representing. And that's the thing, is like, this scene to me is like what makes this so close to like a 10 out of 10. Yes, I'm saying a 10 out of 10 as a movie, a video game movie. I know, because I think this is an underrated gem. I really do. And the only issue I had is that Eddie's, brought into this movie, which he is in the original video game, but he does have a little bit more to do in the video game. Now, I always do think that it is almost simultaneously important to separate video game from movie and just criticize the movie. He's just not in the movie that long. That's all I can criticize if I'm doing that then. And fair enough. I think that's the only fair critique that I have heard of this movie that makes any logical sense in terms of pure writing, which is what I'm focused on. So obviously, he tries crawl away, but Pyramid Head gets to him, and just as Pyramid Head is about to enact vengeance, the alarms go off. And here, it is, he briefly interacts with Alicia, the woman from the before. And this is another interesting scene. We see her, like, pushing him away and being like, no, you fuck off. So, again, if Alicia is, like, another representation of Mary, then fuck. Like, Jesus, James, what did you do, right? Again, really begging that question a lot. And even when we see her later on, it's like, oh, like, damn. So he spots Laura, this young girl. Now, she plays a much more integral role than Eddie does, which I think is an interesting shift, because I think it's actually inversed in the video game. I think Laura had not much going on in the game. I don't remember too much of her from the video game, honestly, in terms of her involvement in the game purely, but for the sake of the movie, we'll just mention that she is here as well. But she claims that Mary gave her a doll, and she runs off, and James then proceeds to follow her. But we see another person begin to following James at this juncture of the movie. And this new woman, who's just a little bit more provocatively, introduces himself to James. We will learn that her name is Maria. Interesting that name isn't even that far off of Mary, right? So we begin to see that we get another flashback as they're like encroaching upon this building of James following Mary, because she's being the cult members are like guiding her to this location. It's like he's like behaving in a way that's like seemingly more pissed off rather than even in an attempt to help almost. And it's like, oh, It's like, oh no, right? But he is awoken, and again, we do get more of what the cult is doing here at this juncture of the movie. However, James's hand, as it hits the ground, as he has another headache in one of the given locations, the location transforms from him. It transforms from him. This is the first time that happens, and I think that is really interesting, because that never happens in the game at all. And what that could resemble, you know. I think, in terms of like thinking, right? Putting that critical mind here is like, okay, so he's following these clues to, refiguring out what he did with Mary, or did to Mary, because he has pushed it deep within himself, that is very clear. So him getting closer is diving deeper into this darkness. That is, to me, what that is signifying. So pretty straightforward, I would argue. At any rate, I do apologize if you hear any snoring in the background. That can't be helped. But I digress. In saying that, this is the location as they encroach upon the hospital. And of course, with them reaching the hospital, we have the nurses, one of the most, another recognized being from the Silent Hill franchise. Again, they were not, I don't think they were in Silent Hill 1. Maybe they were. I don't remember if the nurses were in Silent Hill 1. They were definitely in Silent Hill 2. So again, I'm going to defer to saying maybe that's the case. I don't know, though, for sure. Anyway, I was watching Angry Joe's review, and he said that this scene was really bad. I'm like, what? What scene were you watching, my guy? It's like, okay. So first of all, they encroach a hallway that very much is like one-to-one from the first Silent Hill movie, where they see the group of nurses down one hallway, and like, well, fuck, we can't go that way. Let's go this way. More nurses, as it would turn out, are moving in from another position, and even more nurses are banging on the wall. And so they get trapped in this elevator, and James is ahead, and he starts to move ahead and try to fend off the nurses, as one of them get past him and jabs Maria, as then he manages to get the elevator working after pushing them off long enough. And that is the nurse scene. So let me regale you from the original Silent Hill the movie. The nurses are the last hurdle from the lady cop to the exposition dump. And between that gap is a group of nurses. What transpires is several close calls, and I don't remember the lady getting hurt. She might have gotten scrapped, if I remember correctly. I don't think she does. And it's a good scene. Don't get me wrong. That isn't what I'm implying here. That scene to me was always way too short. This scene is slightly longer, if I'm not mistaken. Like, the scene with the original Silent Hill Hall scene, that's like 30 seconds, I want to say. Like, close to a minute between that frame. this is like this is like pushing definitely a minute plus, right? And there's more consequence, uh, in terms of like, oh, the nurses actually did something that I recall seeing this time around. Way more deadly, that's for sure. They actually, like, pretty much killed Maria at this point, or almost did, right? So I feel like they were just as threatening, if not more so, here in Return to Silent Hill than they were in the original. So what the fuck is this complaint I'm hearing about the nurses? I'm sorry, but like, they're way more threatening here than ever before. It's like, yeah, that's good. I don't know why that's bad. Anyway. So, yeah. So, obviously, he heads off, uh, into the elevator, and Maria is, like, now pleading with him as the elevator's going down. And this is one of the very few shots of the movie that I don't like, where the camera's consistently spinning, and you see the spin between Maria and James. James has gone completely deadpan at this point in terms of expression, which I think is really brilliant because he's like done at this point, with everything. You know, he's gone from being this scared individual, and you can see that rage that he's used to see from before. It's seeping back into this world, and I think that's a very intentional moment. But the spinning is a little bit like nauseating, if I'm being honest, like how it's done. But maybe that is a part of the storytelling. I'm like, again, like even that is like, I'm trying to give that its credit is due, that part. Like, it's supposed to represent something, right? That nauseating feeling between this strained relationship that is clearly unraveling as we are moving through this movie. So yes. Uh Down here is where we get one of our most interesting moments, another one, where, you know, she's like begging him to not move forward, and then we see throughout the walls these pictures of Mary, and they're through several states of her, in the hospital, and getting worse and worse and worse. And he's like, you know what? You're just a part of my imagination. You're just this illusion, this, you know. And he like taps his forehead, and we see Pyramid Head appear and kill her. Um, so what does that represent? So, you know, is James a criminal? Is the immediate question I asked myself, thinking about it even now. You know, uh, you know, he finds this, right, because what, again, back to the representation. You know, Mary, excuse me, is clearly gotten sick, and now we have a causal link to why she got sick. The cult. So she was in a position where she felt stuck. Again, she has a character here to me, unlike the video game. And I know that sounds really bizarre considering that, again, maybe I haven't played Silent Hill 2 in such a long time that I just don't remember enough about Mary in that game, but like, I'm really struggling to remember what her character was. Like, sincerely. Sincerely. And I'm like, this is adding so much to her character already. This story is telling me that, the movie is telling me that Mary is an individual who lost somebody herself, got stuck, and was placed in this position where all of these other people were like, yeah, come follow us. And she was like, well, I'm in this really shitty location and in this really shitty place in life. You know, maybe I can turn to these people, and in doing so, it ended up costing her even more. So much more, right? Because that, again, what causes her to get sick in this context, because they like poison her. So now she is in a position of being like, well, fuck. My entire life has been fucked. I want this to end. And, during this whole journey, and we've seen flashbacks of, James seeing that, the Heavens Bar, and it's clear at some point, we don't even need to see it. We see Maria, so we know sort of, we can connect the dots here. That's what I love about this movie, is we get to connect dots from earlier scenes in the movie and later scenes in the movie. Now we are thinking, oh, right, so he met Maria at this Heavens Bar. That's the obvious connecting of the dot. And, at some point during Mary's sickness, he went to go see her, most likely, and, went for this thrill ride, as it were, this need of, sexual energy. And no, I'm not joking, that's even in the original game, of like this desire, this, wanting to be with somebody in a sexual way is very prominent in Silent Hill 2. And so he goes to see Maria, and to me, the story that it's telling me, based off of the Pyramid Head killing her, is that at some point he did pretty much what he was doing to Mary, to her, to Maria. And, maybe that did rely on an actual death. Maybe he did kill her. Who's to say, right? It's all implication. So, located back into the house, he finds Laura once more, who says that he has nothing left to hide. And we see Alicia, on the bed. This is the final time we see her. And she has these two arms that are like wrapped around her. And every time we see it from James's perspective, he's seeing nothing. He's just trying to pull her up. It's only when the camera's on her that we see the arms, which is a really interesting thread there. And what Alicia represents. It may be the darkest theme of the what he did to Mary, other than kill her at the end. This implies, like, the darkest thing before killing her. There was a step in between that something else happened, and, it's not pretty. It is far from. It is disgusting. It is vile. It is evil. And that is what James is grappling with. And that, to me, is what makes James such a interesting character. And I said interesting. Not likable, interesting. So it is only after James is pulled in by by Alicia, and they end up in a one-to-one room where you fight the boss creature. Here, the confrontation, since you're not playing the video game, you're watching a movie. He confronts her in saying that he is sorry for what he did to her. So Alicia is a representation of, spoiler alert, it's Mary again. Sees Mary in the bed, and we see the final step, as I have just mentioned. We have James helping to kill Mary. She is done with this world. She has gone through heartache after heartache after heartache after, pain, pain, pain. That has been her life consistently. There's never been an escape until now. And James was the final act of that as well, despite even all the dog shit that he did to her. And he confronts the altered version of Mary, the final boss, as it were. And after accepting this, we see him drive into the water, but then we cut back. And this is, I think this plays off of the idea that Silent Hill has several different endings, which is true in the video game. We cut back to him in the start. And it's like he almost had a deja vu moment in this context. And has, is talking with Mary at the bus station and is almost playing it 1-to-1, but this time drives off with her. We get the further extension of them heading back. And that's the end of Return to Silent Hill. And I must say, I think this is an underrated gem, and I find it so unfortunate that so many critics are penning this, when honestly, this is a 9 out of 10. This is an underrated masterpiece. You just have to think a little bit harder in terms of writing. This director is fucking insane, by the way. The levels of show, don't tell. This guy's a fucking master at it, as far as I'm concerned. The way he depicts the monsters and what they represent are more represented here than the original Silent Hill movie, as far as I'm concerned. Because again, Pyramid Head is just there to be there in the original Silent Hill. Here, we know that it's James. We see that 2 times in this movie. There's no mistaking that that's James, and then we can connect the dots of what the spider lady is, again, being Mary, and the different versions of Mary. So the only criticism that I think even remotely holds up for this movie is the Eddie bit, because I think there is something that could have been said for Eddie. Maybe he could have been a different representation of James. Maybe they could have, had something different that would have, really reeled it in. Because he already has Pyramid Head, and Mary, in comparison, has the spider lady. She has Alicia, and she has Laura. James only having Eddie, but Eddie's moment being so brief, and then also having Pyramid Head, I do think Pyramid Head is way more effective than what he's represented. I think Eddie gets the short end of the stick in terms of trying to figure out what the fuck he represents, and the best I can come up with is James beating himself up and then leaving. That's it. That's all Eddie represents in this movie. And again, it is saying something, because you heard me say it, so it's not like Eddie's meaningless in the movie. I just think that there should have been a little bit more with Eddie here before that happened, before he fucks off. But again, he does still... there is sort of a representation you can pull out of Eddie if you're thinking really critically about the movie. So again, even that has something that you can pull from the movie. And to me, that there's so many fantastic elements of this movie that, again, it's it is such a shame that I've seen so many thumbnails saying, oh, this is bad, or they're doing it again, or what. What are you on, people that are critiquing this movie? They are just looking at surface level shit is what I'm telling you. Because what I am seeing is masterclass, or really close. This movie is surprisingly tight for being something that's condensed from a video game that's significantly longer. And I think it tells a much more compelling story here on Mary's behalf from what I can recall from the video game. Again, the added elements tells a whole new story that I think is actually warranted. Again, to me, adaptation is about, people complain about, oh, it's 1-to-1, so what's the point, right? To me, adaptation, this is what adaptation should be. Is like, oh, we're actually adding, like, I know those two words aren't synonymous, but still, like, you're adding something that is adding to what the movie or the video game context is showing us, and it's making the story feel more complete in terms of this much more focused story between James and Mary. And I think that is masterclass work. I think I'm gonna say it. I think this movie's better than Silent Hill. I think I might put this on top of Silent Hill in terms of, like, adaptation versus Silent Hill, because it's from Silent Hill 2, and the amount of just, like, this actually means something. This character actually is a representation of this, versus the original Silent Hill, where it's just like, haha, cameo appearance of Pyramid Head. It's like, that to me is stronger writing. That to me is much more compelling. That to me is much more in-depth. That to me is selling me on wanting to deep dive into the world of Silent Hill. This is a 9 out of 10, and anyone telling you otherwise, I think they're doing a disservice to this movie. I think this movie got a terrible rap in terms of, like, people barely scraping the surface in terms of being able to critique it, and more importantly, being able to dissect it and actually appreciate what it is doing versus what it's not doing. So I think this might be my second favorite adaptation movie of all time. Like, I would have to rewatch Silent Hill again and, go back versus Silent Hill's game to movie to figure that out, most likely. But in terms of just, like, from what I can remember, this might honestly be number 2, which is fucking impressive. And on its own, just like if we were to, and I know that might seem impossible, but even on its own, the story between James and Mary here is, to me, a complete story. It really is. And it's a shit story. But that's what makes it brilliant. That's what makes it masterclass. It's like, oh, this was a tragedy from start to finish. Make no mistake, this isn't horror. It never was. It never was. I don't know why people are expecting jump scares from Silent Hill. That's not Silent Hill. Like, put your brain on and actually think about what you're saying when you say dumb shit like this. And it's really annoying to hear people, I've even heard one of the other individuals review this movie outright just claim, I never even played the game. It's like, well, yeah, obviously you're just gonna have a much worse interpretation of what's going on here. And even what you're saying is, like, you're really honing in on the effects and not really engaging in the story, because your review is only, like, what, 9 minutes? Because, it's like, damn. Why are the reviewers with, like, 10,000 plus subscribers and all this stuff, like Jeremy Johns, doing such dog shit reviews? And I'm over here at 200 subscribers, stuck here, paid by one PayPal supporter, and I'm like, oh, there is so much more going down here than what everyone else is saying. This review is like an hour, encroaching upon an hour, because of how much more I have to say about this movie. It's like, damn, you fuckers are lazy as fuck. Why? It's embarrassing. And they already have the fan base. You can't even, it's so embarrassing. So this is a masterclass. If you have any interest in Silent Hill, I would highly recommend watching this movie. And don't feel like, oh, don't worry about the CGI. Look at what the story is telling you. That's what you need to start focusing on. 'Cause then you're gonna be like, oh, there is a lot going on here, and boy, is this story fucked up from beginning to end. And again, it really does, at the end of the day, make you go, James, what the fuck did you do, my guy? You really fucked up in this moment of weakness, right? He wasn't strong enough to be there when it counted. He wasn't strong enough, to help her in any meaningful way. And yeah, it's so good. It's so, oh my god, this movie is so good. Like, I'm just like rethinking about it. It's like, this movie is so fucking good. 9 out of 10. Like, this movie deserves so much more credit. So much more credit. It is a crying shame that this movie is being decried as being a bad video game movie. I refuse. I simply refuse. This is my review of Return to Silent Hill, and if you've made it this far, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, make sure to check out those links in the description. One, will head you to my petition to help out smaller YouTubers. Second, to my PayPal, where you can help support me and my channel directly. Also, you can check out my Discord server and join, collab, chill, and do all that cool stuff for free. And last but not least, I have another entirely different series based off of that Patreon, the helping out smaller YouTubers. You can also check out my series Respect the Grind, where you can find several other smaller channels and get some new YouTubers to watch, because the current ones we have are just doing dog shit. A lot of them are, apparently. We're all falling off of cliffs, and YouTube's probably gonna die soon. So I'm here over here, the only person, I guess, still trying left to do my best to save it, even though I'm a paycheck to paycheck type of guy. But, until next time, everyone. Bye-bye.